I mean, how weird would it have been if the Daredevil show was actually Ben Affleck? Like, they cast Ben Affleck again in the Daredevil show instead of moving on to a new actor. It kind of helped with the shock value for this movie. I know you're making a face at me because you don't like that hot take, but
I'm just saying the show is always implied to be part of the MCU.
Yes.
It makes sense for him to be in the MCU now. You're wrong, Seth.
I know that they say that.
Your opinion's invalid.
I'm the host of a podcast. Of course my opinion is valid. That shouldn't be the reason. I'm sorry. My opinion is very invalid. I will admit that. This is called sarcasm, guys.
Hello there.
Don't have a good day. Have a great day.
Talk to me, Goose.
I'm gonna steal the Declaration of Independence.
Why so serious?
World! I could do this all day.
Are you watching closely?
Welcome, everybody, to the One Eyed Film Podcast. I'm your host, Seth Mossberg, and I have Ted Lasso here with me today. Sorry. I had to because you said that somebody said you looked like Ted Lasso with your new stash. So Zach is here today.
That's fair.
We are talking today about No Way Home. I suppose this is Spider-Man Part 2 because we cut off Spider-Man. We cut off our Spider-Man episode before we were able to talk about No Way Home. And so now we're talking about it. And we're going to go a little bit by bit through the movie, but that's because we like it so much. And yet we don't. That's kind of the premise and why I wanted to do this on its own, because I have a love-hate relationship with No Way Home. I know that's controversial to say because everyone loves this movie. I really do love it. Just watching it, I get so much joy watching it. But I have a thing about nostalgia baiting. And we will still do an episode on this in the future. Not everything about the movie sits well with me and how it was used and written and produced, I suppose. And we'll get to it when we get to it, but that's just so you know my precedent. I mostly like this movie. It's still sometimes when I think about it a little too much, I don't really like it. So in some ways, but just so we're understanding of each other. You find no faults with it at all, don't you, Zach?
I wouldn't call it a love-hate relationship per se, but I do have issues with the film, and I can accept that it's not the best written movie. I still love it anyways. So.
Sure. I actually do have a note a couple times where it just seems like some of the actors and characters' lines. Do characters have lines or do actors have lines? Actors have lines. Characters are just talking. Yes, I'm dumb. I know this.
Yeah.
A lot of the lines seem very stale in some places. The exposition can kind of be a little dry, but I think everything else overshadows that. But I do want to walk through this movie. First off, the whole general concept that a quote that I saw in a video essay. I can't remember. I must have just written it down without including the link. But as we look at the whole movie, the writers did not sacrifice Tom's story arc for the sake of cameos. They still made it his movie while including 7 familiar faces. I think that is the best part. Like, yes, there can be nostalgia, there can be cameos or even full-on side characters who are not original, not originally cast and kind of stolen from other universes, but it's still Tom's story. It's still the Peter from the MCU. It's still him growing and his development. We get to learn of the end of the other 2 Spider-Mans development in movies that we didn't see or in stories that we didn't follow. And then the villains don't really have a character arc except for what we see because they're plucked out of that time before they were killed off. Tom's Peter just goes through so much in this movie, and it doesn't shy away from that. It doesn't neglect him when the rest of it is filled with people that we've seen before.
You know, it definitely does still carry an emotional story with it. I feel like even beyond nostalgia, when you try and tell a big multiverse story like this, you can often lose like the emotional human side of things, but that is still captured very well in this film, and especially with other nostalgia films as well. I think Jurassic World Dominion is probably just the best example of nostalgia used poorly, where they really just relied on it entirely and just decided not to come up with a good story at all. Because I think there's almost like a spectrum for nostalgia movies where you got like Dominion as your lowest, then I'd say No Way Home's about your midpoint, and then I would say Top Gun Maverick's like your top, because it's like it's good writing and it's nostalgic, while No Way Home is, you know, okay writing and very nostalgic. And just still, you know, being able to balance those 2 things, it's very important if you're going to do a movie like that, because if you only rely on one, you kind of also, it leaves a bad taste in your mouth with these characters that you love from the older movies.
The reason I'm so picky about bringing back old characters is because often justice has been done with their character and that version of a character. And we might talk about it here a little bit with Daredevil. I brought this up in our Daredevil episode, feeling like I had a very hot take in the Daredevil episode where they should have recast Daredevil.
Yeah, you did.
For the sake of giving a new perspective on the character by giving it to a different actor. I mean, how weird would it have been if the Daredevil show was actually Ben Affleck? Like, they cast Ben Affleck again in the Daredevil show instead of moving on to a new actor. It kind of helped with the shock value for this movie. I know you're making a face at me because you don't like that hot take, but
I'm just saying the show is always implied to be part of the MCU.
Yes.
It makes sense for him to be in the MCU now. You're wrong, Seth.
I know that they say that.
Your opinion's invalid.
I'm the host of a podcast. Of course my opinion is valid. That shouldn't be the reason. I'm sorry. My opinion is very invalid. I will admit that. This is called sarcasm, guys. I don't want to get into the Daredevil debate, but they have said that it's a part of it, but they never directly connected it except for right at the beginning. And so I've always seen it as separate. And for a long time, people did see him as separate until recently when they started connecting him back in. And Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is another one where it's like, is this really the same universe? I think that one they said that somewhere along the TV show route, they went into a branch timeline. I don't know. We're not here to talk about Daredevil.
Yeah, the TV show gets very timeline stuff. So
don't they do time travel of their own in the show?
yeah.
That's weird.
In like
to me.
the last 3 seasons, there's a bunch of time travel. So
yes, my point for the whole thing was bringing back old characters. It needs to be done well because you need to continue their story well instead of bringing someone back who has already completed their story. Jurassic World it was Jurassic World Dominion brings back characters whose story arcs ended. They're not there for any specific reason. However, No Way Home continues those stories partly because they kind of pluck them out right before their arc ends, mostly them before they die, in their own movies, in their own stories. But it's because they're not just tokens. They each are still a character. They're written well. Ish. And then they continue telling the story. They are a part of that story. It's not like they add to or take away. They just are the story. That is the point of the entire movie. Is should we send these villains back to die because that's what the multiverse needs, or should we cure them because we have the chance to make them good? That is the premise of the story. And so it doesn't feel out of place in No Way Home because of that reason where it continues to add to the story. Now, I will say, my dad, when he learned that No Way Home was including the villains, he's an original Spider-Man fan. Like he was obviously alive when the Tobey Maguire Spider-Mans came out, Spider-Man movies, and he has them, I believe, on DVD. But he doesn't get why you would bring them back. I wish I would have talked to him before this about what he thinks of that, because he just sees them as different. They're reboots, and yet the MCU has made those reboots those retrospective reboots. So they obviously rebooted Spider-Man 2 other times, but those retrospective reboots, to him, it seems like they should be their own thing. And yet Disney Marvel has made it so that any of those are now just an alternate universe. And that's where we got so many rumors of different villains appearing in No Way Home. Not even villains. We were half expecting the love interests of Toby and Andrew to show up just because they can now. If you can pluck a villain from any point in their story, you can pluck anyone from a point in the story. And that's kind of the danger of the multiverse that I believe we talked about in a past episode. But where does it end? And I don't think it has an end. You open that can of beans, as Josh likes to say.
yeah, it definitely depends on how you use the characters. I would say even No Way Home didn't really do the best at using all the characters they had for nostalgia's sake. You know, Sandman and Lizard were both just kind of there. They're not really given a whole lot to do in the film. You know, most of it revolves around Green Goblin and Doc Ock and a little bit of Electro too. Sandman and Lizard are just kind of chilling.
You're right. So why did they have 5 villains? 2 of them were very underutilized. What would have stopped them from throwing Venom in there like he was supposed to be, and make a Sinister Six, even if you don't have to call it that, make it a Sinister Six, and have Venom join those 2 underutilized villains? Like, I know Venom is the only villain who has had his own movies, but I feel like it was, I mean, everyone thinks that it was kind of a letdown. It's like, why did you make the whole Venom 2 post-credit scene him traveling into the universe and then just leave him to leave at the end of the movie? Everyone was like, well, there's 5 villains and Spider-Man's nemesi are the Sinister Six. Could have just added one more. And the whole reason that Venom is even in the universe is weird because of the spell and how that works, but we'll get to that in a little bit.
Yeah, it's just so weird to stop at 5 villains in a Spider-Man movie. I mean, at that point, you might as well just do 6. And I think even Mysterio was shown in concept art for the film, even though he died and didn't died and then died. And I guess that kind of fits with who his character's supposed to be. He's kind of like an artificial Loki in a sense, where he can fake his death and come back, but I feel like that probably would have taken away from the character to bring him back, but would have been interesting.
And people had a theory about that, about Mysterio coming back because of the end of Far From Home, where the question that he asked Friday was very kind of coded and not specific, and the answer she gave was very vague. So people were like, oh, he still could be alive because she didn't say he is dead. He is no longer breathing. He is not alive. So yeah, that could have also happened. I think it makes more sense if they included Venom 2 post-credit scene to be him traveling to the MCU. Like, Venom sees the news broadcast that starts off the whole movie. Why didn't they just have Venom be the sixth villain, even if he's sidelined? I don't know.
It feels like Sony going, hey, Disney, here's our character. And Disney's just like, no.
It was either that or here's our character. Psych! You don't get him until the very end.
It definitely does feel like a miscommunication between studios, though.
I think one reason that Venom was not and could not have been included in the villain lineup is because they established a Venom who is more of a second character to Eddie Brock in those 2 movies, instead of being, I think of the Spider-Man 2 video game, where it's basically all Venom. It's not the person who's underneath Venom, who I'm not going to spoil for the video game's sake because it's still pretty new. It's not that person. It's just Venom, or using that person as a host. And it's just all out rage. It's all out craziness. I think that Venom works better as a villain in the Sinister Six than the Eddie Brock and Venom dual ownership that is portrayed in Venom 1 and 2, I suppose.
Sometimes it's easy to tell you don't read the comics, Seth.
I suppose. I know that Eddie hates Peter, but that's because they're in the same universe, and as far as we can tell, there's no Eddie in Tom's universe and there's no Peter Parker in Hardy's universe. And so that's why I think I don't know what to think anymore, because Sandman didn't really have a reason to be a bad guy, or he was a bad guy. He is a villain. In Spider-Man 3 that's explored, but he just kind of seems to be angry for angry's sake in No Way Home. And I feel like Venom could also be like that, where it's kind of just ignored of why he's actually on the other side of the fight.
Nando's got a great video, Nando B movies, where he comes up with a scene to add to No Way Home to give Sandman a bit more reason to be doing what he's doing. He has a scene where Green Goblin basically threatens to kill his daughter once they get back to their world. And then Sandman says something like, won't you die once you get back? And he's like, well, you don't know that. That would have been a good scene to add.
That would have. I agree. That makes a lot of sense, especially because Goblin is very conniving in that way, and he would rather manipulate someone than run the risk of being wrong.
Oh, did you know that in an early draft of the film, Venom was also meant to heal Peter Parker, or heal Toby's Peter Parker at the end?
Heal? Oh, the stab wound with the symbiote?
Yeah, he was supposed to heal him.
Weird. Is that supposed to insinuate that Spider-Man 4 brings the symbiote back? Like, if they were to make a Spider-Man 4 with Toby, which has been rumored ever since No Way Home came out, is if the symbiote healed him, would that be a way to try Venom again in that universe? I feel like that would make more sense with Andrew because he hasn't had Venom.
Well, he wouldn't have given him all of it, just enough to heal him,
okay.
I think.
I guess I don't know how the symbiote works then.
Just because of his prior connection to the symbiote. It works however the writers want it to work.
I feel like that could have been a very interesting inclusion, to have Venom be the sixth member, and to Toby to be like, hey, I saw you, but you're not the same one. It's like the villains looking at Spider-Man and being like, you're not the same Spider-Man. But this time it's the only villain that has been shown multiple times. And so Toby's able to be like, you're not the same Venom.
That's why I almost think it would have been interesting to include Green Goblin from Amazing Spider-Man 2 as well, even though he's not that great of a version of the character. But just with having Norman Osborn and Harry Osborn as like this father and son from different universes could have been interesting.
Yeah, for sure. We'll get to that in a sec, but I want to kind of start us off through the movie with the notes that I made as I watched through it very quickly. 2 times speed and skipping through. You know me.
Oh my.
First Daredevil appearance. We've talked about Daredevil, disagreements about that. The fun part is that it's a little bit of a Easter egg, even though it was kind of necessary. So it's not like it was forced in there. Not the cameo. The cameo is a little gratuitous. Favreau was Foggy Nelson in the Ben Affleck movie. Yep. Movies or movie?
Just one.
Just one. Okay. So that's just a little. Happy's there. He's meant to be there. It makes sense that he's there. But he was also in Daredevil way long ago. So just saying. That's cool. I have to ask you this question. Maybe you already know this fact, but what did Matt catch?
A brick.
Wrong. Okay. Yes, he obviously caught a brick. In the original filming, he caught a snow globe. And the visual effects supervisor, I believe, went on Corridor Digital to do their VFX artist react and revealed that he originally caught a snow globe and they VFX'd the brick in there instead. Because I guess they thought that if they threw glass into glass, like both would shatter, which didn't make sense. And they realized that after filming had wrapped. So instead of going and refilming the whole thing or refilming those few shots, they just VFX'd a brick on it. And you can see, if you look closely at his hand, you can see, like you might catch a brick more of in a square shape, but you can see it's a very domed shape that he's grabbing the brick. Both him and Tom grab the brick in a very weird way, but it looks flawless. It looks really great. But now I can't unsee it now that I know that, and neither can you.
A snow globe's also a really weird thing to throw as if you're protesting like that. So I don't know why that was even the original plan.
I know. It makes sense that it's a brick.
I guess
and it
Mysterio?
I don't know. That's what people reference when they talk about it, is that Mysterio had a snow globe in the kind of the dream sequence or whatever. Anyways, that's the fun fact of the day. There's a lot of fun facts of the day coming. As we talk about different characters and how they were included, one that is the least out of place is Doctor Strange. It's obviously the MCU. They just interacted in Endgame and Infinity War, but they know each other, just to spark some conversation. Was the magic aspect necessary? If I'm following my own standard of minimal cameos and such, Doctor Strange is more of a supporting character. He plays a bigger role in the whole story. Was the magic aspect of everything necessary, or could they have done this whole story through another means that didn't include another MCU character? I don't think so, but what do you think?
I think getting into all the multiverse you had to connect that with some other character, whether that would have been Ant-Man or something with the quantum realm, but I feel like Doctor Strange was the much more natural route to go.
Yeah, I guess I didn't consider that to have the story, you kind of have to have a multiverse character, someone who can do the multiverse. And even though Ant-Man does quantum realm stuff, it's more time travel for that, which you can't really break the quantum realm without breaking reality. So yes, it does make sense that it was Doctor Strange. And I don't dislike his inclusion. I'm just curious if there was a way to do it naturally, and I don't think there was. That is kind of the point. He was a supporting character. He wasn't a cameo. He was there as a part of the story, and obviously makes the whole story happen.
I haven't read any of the Spider-Verse comics, so I don't know how they do it in those.
I will say the Mirror Realm scene kind of seemed unnecessary. It just seemed to be a filler for an already long movie, but it was interesting and probably there just to be put in the trailer and make a selling point of the movie.
They really had to do what they could to sell this film without revealing Toby and Andrew, so that's probably why things like that were included in the film in the first place.
Yeah. Well, and they messed up. Do you remember? I was following leaks the whole way right before it launched, and the Brazil trailer
we're talking about the lizard
did an
king?
oopsie.
Yeah.
The lizard kick. On top of all the things that were very blatantly leaks that were very real. Like, again, Corridor Crew did a breakdown of the Andrew leak of him standing on a blue screen next to a railing. And they were like, there's nothing in here that says visual effects. There is a guy who came out and said, oh yeah, I made it all up. I did a deep fake. And yet Corridor was like, no, you didn't. This is flawless. It's just leaked footage. On top of that, there was the Brazil trailer that had an extra, I don't know. To me, it seems like other nations' trailers should just be the same trailer dubbed over in the language. I don't know why some are different, but I don't know what a marketing perspective is on that. But anyways, in the scene where they're jumping, where the villains and Spider-Man, the only one, was jumping towards each other on the Statue of Liberty, you suddenly see Lizard. Well, Lizard and Electro are kind of going at different things that you don't see. So already that is weird, that three characters are going at one person and two of them aren't even looking at him. So that was kind of a giveaway of how it was framed. But also, with the Brazil trailer, Lizard gets kicked and his head twists. And everyone is like, what? That doesn't make any sense. And then all of the visual effects people are like, I know what happened. All you did was turn off the layer that had Toby kicking, or I think it was Andrew kicking him. You just turned off that layer and rendered that one. It makes sense from a production standpoint. Anyways, that was funny.
I wonder how much Marvel paid the one guy to say that he made the leak.
That's true. When that did leak, they were probably like, oh, we need somebody to cover this up. Even if it's for the dummies, the main visual effects people will know what's going on, but the the plebeians will be fooled. And I mean, the biggest giveaway was Andrew himself going on talk shows and just giving it away. Like, he's like, I didn't get a call. And everyone's like, well, your agent would get a call. Stupid things like that. It's just so funny following it back then.
Man, he had this interview where while he was answering questions about it, he would just never make eye contact with the camera.
Yeah.
Just looking to every side, looking up.
There's whole videos on YouTube. Like, there's a 3-minute and 40-second video of Andrew Garfield lying about Spider-Man No Way Home for nearly 4 minutes. Like,
wow.
He didn't do so well at that. Peter realizes right away that he doesn't want the limelight. That's kind of obvious. He wants to run. He wants to hide his secret identity. He's one of the very few superheroes who still has a secret identity. Unlike Tony, his own mentor, he doesn't want to be known. But most other superheroes are also known in the Marvel universe. It reminds me, it's not quite the same, but it reminds me of Matthew 6:24, where it says, no one can serve two masters. Either you will hate the one and love the other, or you will be devoted to the one and despise the other. And then it clarifies that you cannot serve both God and money. That's talking about God and money, or God and other worldly things. You can't be a master. You can't be mastered by both. You have to pick one, and preferably you would pick being mastered by God. But it still makes the point, no one can serve two masters. You cannot live a double life easily. When it comes to sin, your sin will find you out, is what the Bible says. But Peter's not sinning in any way. He just wants to keep his personal life separate from his superhero life. And he goes to the lengths of asking Doctor Strange to wipe everyone's memory, and then everything goes haywire. That's a little bit of biblical clarification, I would say.
I mean, I thought of the same verse while I was watching the movie, just with Peter trying to do two things at once and failing at both.
Yeah, and even though there was some backlash, obviously, from the college that he applied to, and he couldn't get into that, there's still a sense of freedom of him being Spider-Man and his secret identity being revealed. There's a bit of freedom in that, and he can still not like that, but he obviously didn't go the route that most other superheroes were like, and just even humbly accept the acknowledgement. But it was because Mysterio had made him the villain with the video, and so part of it was self-preservation, and part of it was, secret identity stuff. So I think the spell is technically anyone who knows Peter Parker is Spider-Man, and it got flipped on its head, and then the people who knew were transported to Earth 616. I don't remember. There's been debate about which one the Marvel universe is.
Or it's 199999.
Is it? I don't.
It's either 616 or that. No one really knows.
But I know for sure Electro did not know the identity of Spider-Man, and I don't think Lizard did either. Like, Dr. Connors knew Parker.
Lizard did.
Okay.
That happens at the end of the movie.
So obviously we have a discrepancy between some villains who know who Spider-Man is and who don't, like Electro. Venom obviously doesn't, because there's no Peter Parker in his universe as far as we can tell. So...
Well, they explained that in the post-credit scene of Let There Be Carnage is because he's got the hive mind across multiverses. And Venom from Spider-Man 3 knew Peter Parker was Spider-Man. That's explained.
Did it say that?
Yeah.
Or is that just a fan theory? Okay.
In the Let There Be Carnage post-credit scene, they said the multiverse had mine, so that's why he got pulled through.
It's a dumb reason.
Technically, Venom from every universe would have been pulled in.
Yes! It's such a cop-out and such a dumb reason. Anyways, on that note, why wasn't Dane DeHaan's Harry Osborn pulled in? Because he knew for sure. Obviously, James Franco's Goblin knew. Topher Grace's Venom, I believe, knew at some point. Rhino didn't, but I just threw him in there because he's another villain. Mm-hmm. But we've already established through Electro that it didn't need to be... They didn't need to actually follow that rule, even though they said that was the reason. Now, I know the reason. The reason is because they only wanted so many villains. And why they didn't pick 6, we don't know. And but of those, like, why did they choose? Why did they choose the villains that they did?
Dane DeHaan's Green Goblin wasn't very popular. James Franco is still canceled, I believe. I don't know.
Oh, what? He's canceled?
Some stuff with him. I think so. He said some stuff.
What happened to James Franco 1 week ago? Let's find out.
Oh, there was some sexual misconduct, looks like.
Oh, of course it would be. But... Me too and the end of Franco. There it is.
And what else did he say? Of course, Rhino... I don't know. I don't think anyone actually liked Rhino.
It would be so fun if they included Rhino, though.
Yeah, and that's all of them.
I thought I had one more. Oh, Topher Grace's Venom.
Oh, people didn't like him either. So
that's true. The only reason that they picked the villains they did is because they're popular. And yet, I still would argue that Lizard was not popular. He is one of the most sidelined characters. Sandman was the villain or the anti-hero in Spider-Man 3. He was more unjustifiably sidelined, and it seemed like the Lizard was more justifiably sidelined.
Wait, are you saying that Lizard was sidelined in No Way Home or Amazing Spider-Man?
Yes, in No Way Home.
In both?
He was left in a truck.
Yeah. Marvel knew what the fans wanted, which is basically what this whole movie is. Marvel knew they wanted and they gave that to us.
You're right. I have to say, though, the Goblin reveal, so good. I think that they hit gold when they made Spider-Man 1 and cast William Dafoe as Green Goblin. People have been wanting him to play Joker, but this is his Joker. The same way that Heath Ledger was Joker, William Dafoe is the Goblin. Like, that is... They tried with James Franco and they tried with Dane DeHaan, and it just didn't hit the same. It's just like casting a Joker like Jared Leto or Barry Keoghan?
For Green Goblin or for Joker?
No, it's for Joker. So you hired Heath Ledger. He did an amazing job, and then you had Jared Leto, and then you had the one from the Batman.
And Joaquin Phoenix.
And Joaquin Phoenix.
Joaquin Phoenix.
What is the other Joker? Barry Keoghan. Mm-hmm. Barry... whatever he is. Yeah, the Batman Joker that they've teased. It's not the same. They can do fine for a different version, but the essence of Ledger playing Joker and the essence of Dafoe playing Goblin, that's just, they hit those characters so well. And so when he flies through the smoke and does his laugh, it just sends chills down your spine. It doesn't really matter that it's a cameo or a supporting cameo or whatever. He does it so well, and it's his Joker. Like he has a smile, he has the face. He doesn't need to take a stab at the Joker because he's gotten his glorious purpose as the Green Goblin.
One of the best things that this movie did was destroying his mask right away. I don't know why they had him in a mask for so long in his first one. I mean, I get to hide his identity, obviously, but to be creepy, he doesn't need a mask like that. I mean, I don't want to say the dude's face is creepy, but the dude's face is creepy, and he works better without the mask, and so I'm really glad we got to see that in No Way Home, especially, like that scene where Spider-Man's just like wailing on him and he's just laughing. That sends chills down your spine.
Yeah, his new outfit is a lot cooler. I like his hood and his goggles and all that. Yeah. It's kind of the rugged Green Goblin. It works so well. I'll get to it in a sec, but Can the Spider-Man come out to play? That scene is so good. Speaking of revamps for characters, they did Electro justice. He wasn't transparent blue anymore.
Yeah, I have a friend who doesn't actually like the change, but
as in they would rather have the blue transparent eel bitten.
I think so. I think they just didn't like how radical of a change it was, especially kind of turning him from, because he had a completely new personality as well. Instead of the nerd that he was in Amazing Spider-Man 2, he was pretty much just Jamie Foxx in this one. So I think
that's a good point.
in some ways it was a better Electro, but it also was just a very unrealistic change of character.
That makes sense, though. The character change is different. It's as though he was Max in the first half of ASM2, and then he was Electro, and now this is his alter ego chill Electro version. Because Electro kind of was not Max at all, but then when he turns down the electricity, this is what he would be, and is what he is in No Way Home. And they kind of make fun of it, but just acknowledging that it happens doesn't make it okay. I'm not saying it was bad. I'm just saying that they were joking about him having a comb over and having buck teeth and all that, and they joked about it to kind of get away from that topic. And I don't know. I like it because it marvelifies the character into be the more tactical. Like, he's wearing an electrician vest that kind of makes sense, or actually he's wearing nothing at first, but then he puts on the electrician outfit. It's fitting. The other two, so we've talked about kind of the revamps. We haven't talked about Doc Ock yet, but really quick, the Sandman and Lizard, the original actors only gave their voices and didn't really give any other motion capture, I believe. That's interesting to me.
Yeah, that's true. There's your second fun fact for the day.
Fun fact, behind the scenes fun fact. And then we can talk about Doc Ock. I don't actually have any notes about him, but they de-aged him a little bit. I don't know why they did him and not anyone else, but...
Did they de-age him?
They did. There's visual effects that show him, like, they tighten his neck up a little bit and things like that.
Oh, okay.
But I think the cool part, when you know the behind-the-scenes fun facts, is that they did a lot of work on creating digital doubles for Spider-Man 2, especially for Doc Ock. And having that come full circle 20 years later, not quite 20 years later, like 15 years later, is, I want to say, wholesome, because that he probably did scans for the original Spider-Man 2, and they made him into a digital double to do things that he wasn't able to do in costume. And now I feel like they lean too heavily in that way, but at the same time, it's Alfred Molina on both ends of the story of this visual effects. Even if he didn't have a hand or even know what was going on, like, it shows two different parts of it. And it's not just him. It's just, I'm just saying that they used a lot of digital doubles because they knew that they couldn't get a lot of things with Doc Ock, and now they can do it a lot better. Now, I will say that you can notice a lot of digital doubles in this movie, because I think this is the point where Marvel really started to overwork their studios that they were hiring these scenes out to. And you can really see it in some of the slow-mo shots. If you go frame by frame, it's not the worst thing. It's not noticeable like like the Flash or any of the, like, She-Hulk or anything like that. But it's a little bit less careful. They were a little bit less careful with this one, I think. It's kind of where it started to fall off.
There's a few certain aspects, like with the VFX there and some of the writing, where they were like, we don't care. We're giving them all three Spider-Man. They're going to pay us money.
I forgot, how much did No Way Home make?
Isn't it like the 10th highest grossing film of all time?
Well, you're looking it up now, but almost $2 billion. That's crazy. I didn't realize it was that big, but $2 billion. As I'm now paying attention to box office numbers and how I said it in the 2024 predictions, that I don't see any billion-dollar movies this year. This is the $2 billion movie that will never happen again. Oh, it's because there was a re-release, but that only brought in $10 million. Original release, international brought in $1.1 million. Oh, sorry. Okay. Worldwide, it brought in $1.9 million. That's the number. I see.
It's the 7th highest film of all time.
You got there first. Yep, 7th highest. Above it are... It just beat out Jurassic World. Above it are Infinity War, Force Awakens, Titanic, The Way of Water, Endgame, and the first Avatar, which all make sense. But it is weird that the one standalone, or the third movie in the trilogy, the lowest of the low, it's not that. But you kind of have a thing where all of these other movies have one reason or another to be in the top 10, and No Way Home definitely kind of came out of the woodwork for it, because I don't even know. I want to find Spider-Man Far From Home is 31st, and I don't know where Spider-Man Homecoming. It's probably really down here. Spider-Man Homecoming is number 79, and Spider-Man 3 is 73. So there's your third fun fact. Crazy. Continuing on.
I'm so blown away that Avatar is the highest grossing film of all time. I haven't seen it. I don't understand it.
It is weird because the story is not that great, but the effects, the visuals are so good. Yeah, okay, he says. It seems like all of the villain's recollections are so forced. That could be a little bit of how else are you going to explain it? This is where it starts to fall apart for me. You expect that all of your fans are seeing or have seen the previous 7 movies. 3 Toby, 2 Andrew, and 2 Tom. The 2 Tom Holland ones make sense because it's the third one in that trilogy. Like my fiance, I'm going to give her a shout out because she likes when I shout her out because she knows I love her.
Hi, Ellie.
She has never seen the Andrew Garfield or the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movie. And she's still, I mean, she's into Marvel and she saw Homecoming and Far From Home on their own. I believe that one of the reasons it's top 7 worldwide in box office is because people from all generations of Spider-Man were coming to see it. With all of the rumors that were going about, even if there were Tobey fans who had never seen a Tom film or Andrew fans who had never seen a Tom film, everyone was coming to see this movie. And so that's one of the reasons it popped off. And yet the people who are just Marvel fans, which I suppose I don't know if that there's that many Marvel fans who don't already know all of the other Marvel properties that came before. It just seems weird to me that they both give a backstory, but also assume you've seen it. Does that make sense?
Well, it's meant for the few that haven't.
But the whole premise is based off of the fact that you have seen the past movies, right?
I mean,
otherwise you just recast them as new characters.
If you don't know them from the other movies, they're just alternate universe Spider-Man. So
sure. I did not realize that Goblin turns bad at the exact middle of the movie. It's an hour and 10 minutes into an hour or into a 2.5 hour movie. I felt like that was further down the line, but that just means that the next part of the movie goes so fast. Yet I don't realize it. It's not like it goes fast because it's a bad thing. It's really fun to watch that second half of the movie, but there's so much that happens, and it just seems shorter for some reason. I don't know. It's a weird dichotomy.
I saw it 3 times when it originally released, and okay. I will say that the first half of the movie is pretty slow, but when you get to that scene in the Happy's apartment is where it really picks up.
But that's the end of the second act. Like that fight, like most acts end in a fight. The first one ended with, or the first one was the just Doc Ock versus Spider-Man. That was the end of the first act. And then the end of the second act was the apartment scene and the death of Aunt May. And then the end of the third act, obviously the end of the movie. Speaking of Aunt May's death, why does it hit so hard? Is it the acting? Is it the writing? Is it the situation that has led up to that? I can't really pinpoint it, but I want to hear your thoughts.
Well, I think another thing you gotta add is the film score. Michael Giacchino did so good with that track, so just emotional with the strings and everything. Why does it hit hard?
I even wrote down, why does hers work so much better than the other Uncle Ben's deaths? Maybe they don't. Maybe they don't.
What are you talking? What are you? Go ahead. You have the floor.
I do, because it's my podcast.
Why'd you write that?
The reason I say that is that her death is the only one that I get emotional at. Now, that's not to say I rewatch the other movies as often, and so I know what to compare it to. And that's not to say that they're not sad. I'm saying that I feel like Aunt May's death hits way harder than the other two. Mentors' deaths. Tell me why I'm wrong.
Why are you wrong? It's Uncle Ben, man. I think especially the Tobey Maguire one is obviously the more iconic one, but the Andrew Garfield one is probably the more impactful.
The Tobey Maguire one is when he's crying like a baby. He's like...
Yeah, I guess I more mean the Uncle Ben is the more iconic one in those.
Sure,
but
you're right.
In the Andrew Garfield films, the death scene is a lot more impactful, especially with the sense that, Uncle Ben was going out to find Peter when he got shot. But I do get what you're saying with Aunt May's maybe being more impactful. I think it's also because it's a character that we've gotten to know over multiple movies instead of just meeting the character. So I will give you that.
I was not listening to you. I'm sorry. I will listen to it when I edit, but I'm... Can you give me a summary? I asked you and then I completely ignored you.
Can I give you a summary of all I just said? Gosh dang it, Seth.
I know.
I was saying that Uncle Ben and his death, it's probably more iconic in the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies, but I think it's done more impactfully in Andrew's films, just with the fact that Uncle Ben went out to find Peter when he got shot, and also Andrew Garfield gives such a good performance in that scene as well, and I think just because, as I said before, he's definitely the best actor to play Spider-Man. Not the best Spider-Man per se, but the best actor who has played Spider-Man. And it really came out in that scene especially. Yeah. And I do think with Aunt May and her death in No Way Home, it is done really well. And once again, Tom Holland gives a good performance. And I think just knowing Aunt May from...
Got him.
I don't know. It's because I'm summarizing, I guess.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Because we know Aunt May from more than one film, I think that's why that scene was maybe more impactful.
That was exactly what I was going to say, is that because we have spent 2.5 movies with Aunt May, and then she dies, having it be in the middle of Peter's story instead of at the inciting moment, that was the classic Spider-Man story. We don't know what happened to Uncle Ben in the MCU, but having her be a character that we followed for this long is probably why it's more impactful. For me, I would say yes for The Amazing Spider-Man 2 or for The Amazing Spider-Man. Andrew cries really well, and I've noticed that watching this back in this movie. He cries really well and acts through his crying. And then Tobey's Spider-Man is just iconic, and that scene is he's ugly crying, but it's the story of Spider-Man, I guess. I don't know. We are going to get into probably one of the most spiciest, and yet maybe it's not as spicy as I'm thinking, parts of the episode and the movie. I hate coming off strong here. I hate the Andrew pause. And it's not just the Andrew pause, it's the Murdoch pause. Oh. It's the pause that is written into the story for the theater audience to applaud. I would like to present to you the Apause. That's my title for it, the Apause. But the Apause is really bad. He jumps through the portal and he just kind of like does a idle animation. He's just like... and he just stands there. And Matt does the same thing at the very beginning when he sticks his staff down, and he just says one line as kind of filler, and then he's just kind of silent as people, they know that they're cheering for them. But when you watch it back as a lonely guy in a dark room, and you're the only one, and you're just the only reaction you have is smiling because you're remembering the good memories, it's really awkward. It's really bad just sitting there as they just stand there, and they're just like, so yeah, it's very annoying.
I don't know. I don't think I had that much of a problem with it. I feel like it's, especially with Andrews, it's more just him like collecting his bearings is how I understand it, because he did just jump through a portal. But... Okay,
but from a filmmaking perspective, you don't want dead air unless there's a reason for it. There usually dead air when you have no sound at all, not no sound, but you have no dialogue and no camera actions, is happening for a dramatic reason. Maybe there's two characters having a heartfelt moment. It has an explanation within the story. If he was gathering his bearings, like you say, I feel like he would be looking around, and maybe there would be more lines as well. I'm not saying you have to be able to listen to a movie to understand what's happening, but there's just so much silence there. And it's awkward. I didn't think that when I was watching it for the first time. I was thrilled. I was jumping out of my chair with my friends. Now, looking back at the cut that was released in theaters, it doesn't work. It's just bad filmmaking. Okay, sorry. I take that back. It's not bad filmmaking. It's really good filmmaking that stumbled for the sake of nostalgia and knowing what will happen in the theater instead of just giving you a good movie. You shouldn't be thinking, what is the audience going to react in the theater to this? Will this be a moment that will be ingrained in a generation's lifetime? You should just be thinking, does this make sense for the characters in the movie? That's my hot take for the episode. On top of the other one I had earlier, I'm sorry. I told you I had a love-hate relationship with this.
I don't know. I just think I'm happy to see them every time I watch the movie. So it doesn't bother me that much.
Fair enough. We move on. Because one of my favorite scenes is right after this. Tom is grieving, and rightly so. And the first interaction between the Spider-Man happen. And obviously they're Spider-Man. I think one of the coolest shots is them lit by the moon, where they're on the dome and they're in their poses. Like, that's a really cool shot. I didn't even remember this line, but I'm reading it now. Like, Andrew's starting to well up. Tobey is kind of more hardened. He's the hardened Spider-Man, even though Andrew is still the one he said, I stopped pulling my punches. He's a very emotional Spider-Man, and that's why I think Andrew does so well. Tom says,
I got
some understanding of what it is. No. Please don't tell me that you know what I'm going through. Okay.
Oh, that hurts just because that is where seeing the other movies, you absolutely know what happened. You absolutely know what he's going through. And that's something that blew over a lot of people's heads. And it just, man, he's acting with his face. Like, he's acting with his face. That's what most most actors do. But he acts through his tears, his emotion. He's so emotional, and his lip quivers. He delivers his lines in a way that you know that there's more story that he's not telling you, and that you can almost hear his thoughts. It's so good. It's just. That gives me chills now. That's one of my favorite lines. It's not the with great power and then Toby finishes it. That's not anywhere close to where Andrew's just like, yeah, sure, okay. You tell. I know you're like, he gets it. He's grieving, but he's hurt. He's hurt because of Tom's ignorance.
First off, I think they really should have ended a trailer with that shot of them, like against the moon and their silhouettes. You know what I mean?
Yes.
You wouldn't know for sure yet that it's Toby and Andrew, but something's happening.
Yeah, I think it's pretty obvious though. It's like...
It probably would be, but you're not just showing them directly.
I've said that I feel like they should not have revealed that Spider-Man was in Civil War in the trailer. And that's basically what they did with Toby and Andrew. So it's obviously a lot harder to keep secrets when there's two people and when there's such big names, and then trying to keep set photos under wraps. Like, I don't know what news came out about Tom Holland being hired and then appearing in Civil War, but his appearance at the end of the title card of the trailer revealed that he was in the trailer. So what would the effect have been if they revealed silhouettes of Spider-Man in one of the trailers? Would there have been as much mystery to going to the theater than there was when we went? And we honestly didn't know. Like, there can be leaks, but we honestly didn't know if they were going to be there or not.
I think you probably would have had more numbers, bigger box office numbers on the first night if they did that, because it gives people certainty.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that's interesting. I feel like that maybe somebody should make a trailer, somebody who has editing skills, to see how that would have played out as a trailer concept. That's me.
Do it, Seth.
I might. So the big fight, the third act. There's a lot to talk about, but honestly, I want to talk about the big things, not the little things, because the little things you can talk about a lot, all the time. First off, a lot of game reviewers have done tier lists or rankings of the top Spider-Man suits, especially from Spider-Man 1 and Spider-Man 2 video games, because the movie versions are in there as well. Which live action, not Into the Spider-Verse, which live action Spider-Man suit is your favorite? Maybe we didn't talk about this in the Spider-Man episode, but now I want to ask, because we talked about which is your favorite Spider-Man, and you said like Andrew plays Spider-Man, is the best actor to play Spider-Man, and then probably Toby is the best Spider-Man.
No, that's not what I said.
What did you say?
Well, I said that Toby's got the best movies, but he's probably the worst Spider-Man, in my opinion.
Okay.
And I think Andrew's probably the best actor to play Spider-Man, but I think overall Tom's the best Spider-Man. Okay,
that makes sense. But now we're talking about suits, looks, live-action suits. And there's multiple different ones throughout the series, throughout the trilogies. What's your favorite?
Well, I gotta say the suit that Tom wears for most of No Way Home isn't that great. With the gold, looks a little weird to me. I don't know what your thoughts.
Yeah, the part nanotech, that was the crossover, and a lot of people didn't really like that. Yeah. But I don't know. It's better than the full nanotech Iron Spider suit.
Oh, you think so?
Yeah.
Okay. I would probably say my favorite is probably the Amazing Spider-Man 2 suit. With the final No Way Home suit being a close second just because we haven't seen much of it. Because those two both most faithfully adapt like the comic suit.
This isn't probably a comprehensive one, but this is a majority of the main ones. So we have, this one is the Infinity War one. This is Spider-Man 1. This is Homecoming. Is this ASM 1 or ASM 2?
Top row is ASM 1. Bottom row is ASM 2.
And then this is Far From Home. This is ASM 2. This one, Spider-Man 3, Homecoming, No Way Home, Far From Home.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's more Toby suits. I thought there was a special one for Spider-Man 2.
Not
but
really.
I think that's the point. Okay.
They're just slightly adjusted. People call them different suits, but it's not really. Picky people can spot the differences, but I'm not picky.
Yeah. Okay. So these are the suits. You said ASM 2?
Yeah, that first one on the bottom row.
Okay. ASM 2. I think that's one of my favorites as well. I really want to like... Wait, what was your second one?
The one from the end of No Way Home. The new suit that Tom Holland
the black
makes.
and red. Black and red.
No.
Oh, sorry, No Way Home. That one's not on here.
Yeah.
Yeah, the one that's a mixture.
With the shiny blue.
Yeah, that one's a good one. I still think... See, that's what I was going to say. I want to like the red and black, the Far From Home suit. Mm-hmm. I don't know what it is. Some people don't like the logo of the new Spider-Man because it looks like a tick.
It does.
Is that you? That was you who said it?
Well, it does. I mean, I don't think you can say it doesn't.
It does. It does, but it's not. It's still a spider. I don't know, man. Yeah, I think ASM2 suit is one of the best. I lean towards Far From Home black and red, but the collab suit at the very end of No Way Home is it's Spider-Man. It's all of the it's like how we talked about when I talked. No, you and I talked about it. It's like when we talked about Batman not too long ago. The Lego Batman is all of the Batman, and this new suit at the end of No Way Home is all of the Spider-Man. I just thought of that as I saw 3 different suits. They each have their iconic like eye shape and patterns so that you know who's who, even though all 3 of them are red and blue. On top of that, they also had their iconic swings, like when they run off the platform and they did their own, like Andrew did a cheery, like woohoo, and then the different ways they fell. It was very fun. Tribute to their characters. I don't exactly remember. I do know that Andrew's was like more of a free fall for a longer time before he threw his web. It's stuff like that, and that's the scene that everyone's like, let's go.
Yeah.
I don't have much to say about the fighting. Like it's creative. It's they learn how to work as a team. That's the point. It's fun.
Their chemistry is all really good. I love all the talking and about the villains and all the jokes. Those are all really great.
Yeah. Again, some of that seemed forced. Of like, oh, I fought a big black alien from outer space, and then Andrew's like, I wish I could fight an alien. Tom's like, I fought a purple alien. Like that seemed a little forced. It's fun. It's goofy. They probably want to talk about those things with each other, but it's a little forced and quick for the audience. And here we are.
Well, you said they wanted to talk about those things, and here we are.
I see. Yep, you're right. Yeah. No, I said they probably want to talk about those things. Like they want to talk with each other about them.
Oh, that's what you said. Okay.
Anyways, they cure most of them, and I think one of the funny lines, and again calling it out, a reference to another Spider-Man, is when Electro says,
I just thought you was gonna be black.
Oh man, I'm sorry.
Like he's apologizing for being white. He's just like, sorry.
Welcome to America. Oh no.
Oh no. No, that's obviously a reference to Miles. And technically Miles exists in the MCU, not as Spider-Man, or maybe yes as Spider-Man. Maybe there will be Miles in Spider-Man 4. But is Miles technically, canonically, the only black Spider-Man? I know there's obviously other Spider-Men of nationalities other than white or American, but I don't know. It just always seems like he's the go-to.
I think he's the only well-known African-American Spider-Man. You know, there's a Mexican Spider-Man and Indian Spider-Man, but...
Well, I know from Across the Spider-Verse, but I don't know what is canon in comics and all that. I ain't got time for that.
I think Miles is really the only one.
I know we just skipped over a lot of the fight, but when Goblin enters the arena, insert Anakin meme here.
This is where the fun begins.
Again, I said it earlier. Can the Spider-Man come out to play? Chilling. I love that. It was so sudden. It's one of those where it's... Okay, as a prospective filmmaker who has a lot of ideas and no way to execute them, one of my dreams is to create a horror movie that has no jump scares. And I'm sure that there have been skits about this on YouTube and such, but doing all of the tropes of like a long dark hallway and like a screechy violin and then a zoom out and like and then there's absolutely nothing. It's all tension and no delivery. Just a side note, that's always been a dream of mine. Whenever I see a horror trailer, I'm like, I should just I should make something that never delivers on the tension. Moving on from that, there is no tension leading up to the Goblin entrance in the fight. It's just suddenly, can the Spider-Man come out to play? So quick and so fast. He does the spinning blades, which Tom does the same flip that Toby did in the first one. Another call out, which is funny because everyone else stands still, which is kind of funny to me. But one of my biggest that's crazy moments, you just have a that's crazy moment when you watch something, or that's crazy turns into like jumping out of your seat like, what the heck? It was the pumpkin bomb in the box.
Oh yeah.
That was something where the music led up to it. You didn't know what was going to happen. You didn't see what happened. And you have the zoom in on all 3 of their faces, and then you just see the box with the pumpkin bomb go clink. and it explodes. And that was something that I didn't see coming. It was one of those twists that it was a good twist that made me be like, what the heck? I don't know. There's something about that still gets me. It makes me smile that it subverts your expectations, but not because you had any expectations. You just know that there's chaos, and when the music dies down, there's about to be more chaos. Like it's timed really well. It's maybe some cinematographer or director could break it down of why it works so well, but I loved it. For some reason, that moment stands out to me.
And then Andrew redeemed himself.
Yes.
After that.
Okay. Andrew's redemption.
That was a sweet moment.
Sweet, way more than sweet. Sweet is like, oh, he saved her. No, he got redemption. He's been thinking about this moment for years. And he's thought, how would I have done it differently? What is the best way I could have saved her? And he did it. He caught her instead of webbing her. Obviously, maybe in the clock tower, it wasn't as possible to grab her, but he knew that he would have aimed for that instead of just trying to web her with a little bit of elastic that is in the webs. Again, he tells the story through his face, and he cries well. He catches her, and he's like,
Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm okay. Are you okay?
That's the other moment that makes me emotional. It's just, he acts so well. It's so good, and the redemption is worth it.
It's an interesting detail that when he saves MJ, he catches her in his arms. As with when he saved Gwen, he tried to save her with a web. I think it just shows a further commitment to it than when he tried to save Gwen, because that was the whole thing with Gwen and Peter in that movie. Is he really like committing to this relationship or not, and just kind of that balance between Spider-Man and Peter. But now we see him kind of like for Gwen, you see him save MJ as Peter instead of just Spider-Man, if that makes sense.
Even though people want to say that we're getting, or would like to think that we're getting Amazing Spider-Man 3 or Spider-Man 4 sometime, this is the closest we'll get, I think, to that sort of redemption without a whole movie. I think it was really well done. And I don't know if people assume that he was going to do that, because her falling was in the trailer. And actually Zendaya spoiled it. She said, we were doing the fall stunt, which was in the trailer. And she said, and you weren't there talking to Tom. And everyone's like, well, why wasn't he there? So I remember that being a telltale sign.
We should talk about Peter versus Goblin. That is such a bone-chilling match. Just the fact that it starts with, Peter going, no, I want to kill you myself, and just seeing kind of how dark Peter had gotten in this film. And I think that's kind of the interesting thing about Spider-Man's character in general, is when you threaten someone he loves or kill someone he loves, it's like just a trigger goes off in his mind, and he's just kind of a different person for a bit. And seeing that battle was so raw. We've barely seen Spider-Man punch anyone in the MCU, so seeing him just wail at Green Goblin at the end like that was just it was something. It made you feel. I'm going to say that.
I would say that's a continuation of him and his grief. May just died hours ago, and he's been kind of pushing it back with his new friends, but now he's able to just release it. And the look that Toby gives him at the very end is just saying, dude, you don't want to do this. It's not worth it. It's that teaching moment without saying any words that I think is so beautiful. Yeah. And yeah, it shows how much May meant to him. And we feel that too, because she was with us for 2.5 movies. So it seems warranted, I suppose.
And I think it's really interesting too how they gave Tom a more personal vendetta against Goblin than Toby ever really did.
I feel like that's just his maturity as a Spider-Man, being able to understand the meaning of people, human depravity, as us Christians would call it, or what he would have done differently, or he's more mature. He knows what it's like to want to kill another person. He had that. He explained that a little bit with the guy who killed his Uncle Ben, where he's like, I got what I wanted. It wasn't fulfilling. He tried to talk him down on that rooftop, but then he had to talk him down again right after fighting Goblin. Following this up, I want to talk through something, because there are the cracks in the sky.
Oh, yeah.
There are silhouettes, and I wanted to see if we can figure them out by looking at them. This is pretty obvious right here. This is Kraven, because you can kind of see the big shoulders.
Yeah, Kraven right there.
Right? So this is Scorpion, because you can see the tail right here. This looks like another Iron Spider. I don't know exactly what that is. We'll play it as instead of just pausing it here. I don't know who this is over here. Again, they're supposed to be everyone is supposed to be coming through, and that's the whole point. There's some people who are prominent right in front. Let's play it over. This one almost looks like a Chitauri. It's like the Iron Spider, but he moves in a way that's more bent over and like a Chitauri. This one might be a woman because you can see the hips right here and maybe some long hair. That's my opinion. Oh, I think this might be Madam Web because it looks like there's something above her that I feel looks like her throne, maybe. Not the Dakota Johnson Madam Web, just the generic Madam Web character. That one was Rhino for sure. Yeah, and I don't know who the one on the right is. I'm sure there are videos in the description that we can find later that are people dissecting what they could be. I don't think they're actually hinting at anything, but it's showing the lore of Spider-Man and all the villains he's fought. Yeah, and then he wipes the memory of everyone else. It's very sad. It's big sad, and we're sad. I don't know how else to say it. Mm-hmm. It happens. I don't know that there's... big sad. It will be interesting to see how they approach it in the next movies, because there are a lot of things like, well, how did the lady from Harvard or whatever college it was know who saved her from the bridge? And did the Avengers just remember all of Spider-Man without knowing who it was, and he just had a mask on the whole time? I'm sure they'll explore it. I know there's rumors that Spider-Man 4 is in production soon. I'm sure it'll come out. I'm sure we'll get answers. Marvel is on a hiatus this year pretty much, and we'll see what happens 25, 26. But your favorite suit, the blended suit at the end, I think is pretty epic. It's second favorite. Second favorite suit. They did us a little dirty by only showing us in nighttime with flashing lights and nothing really clear, but you get the gist of it.
That's because it's easy for the artists.
I do think that the Spider-Man 2 video game probably had that suit as an option, and so you got a lot more clear look, and I think actual set photos or actual depictions of what it is have been released. But yeah, it looks sick. It's a blend of all of them. I love it.
Where do you think they should go from here?
Yeah, I mentioned a Spider-Man 4. I think where Far From Home left off, with the promise of Spider-Man learning what it meant to be Spider-Man and Peter Parker at the same time, to have that acknowledgement wherever he went, that recognition, where it kind of delivered on that, it also left us kind of wanting because it went on a different story. Like, it could have been all about him living life and trying to do Spider-Man things while being noticed. That was the first half of the movie. It could have been a whole movie by itself. I think that now they're promising a fourth movie that continues the story of him being lonely, maybe finding a new friend, maybe finding a Gwen Stacy, and being his own person without those other people. Although Jacob Batalon and Zendaya are very good, very noticeable faces, so I don't know if they would just ignore them, kind of like they did with his first girlfriend in Homecoming. I feel like Spider-Man 4 could explore what it means to be a different, unknown Peter Parker while still being Spider-Man, and yet I could see it taking a different direction, the same way that No Way Home took a different direction. Instead of delivering on what is life like as both Peter Parker and Spider-Man, it explored that, but that wasn't what the story was about. I see the same thing happening in Spider-Man 4, which I'm not even sure should happen, because I'm against, as previous episodes have made very clear, I'm not a huge fan of continuing movies after their third movie. Now, I feel like Spider-Man 4 is warranted because there's more story to be told. When a fourth movie is pushed onto a trilogy without it being warranted, that's where I have a problem. Indiana Jones, Thor, kind of Captain America, but I still argue that the next Captain America movie is actually just Sam's movie, and so Steve Rogers got his trilogy. But I do think that there's more story to tell with Spider-Man. I also think that we shouldn't keep rebooting characters at this point. I think they need to keep running with it, regardless of how many movies have to come out. Sony is a little protective of Spider-Man sometimes in their deals with Marvel, and so I honestly don't really care how many more Spider-Man movies have come out. Also, Spider-Man's cool as heck, so of course I want more movies with him. I don't want to cut it off at 3 just because it's 3. There's no magic number about that.
So you're saying we shouldn't reboot Spider-Man, but we should reboot Daredevil. Is that what I'm hearing?
You got me. Oh, you got me. No. I see what you're saying. It's because I still think that the Daredevil series mostly takes place outside of the MCU. If it's not already inside the MCU as canon, it should be like, why aren't we bringing back the Fan Four Stick as the Fantastic Four? Because that's not MCU. That was obviously not the MCU. I remember watching I think it was actually High Top Films of stop rebooting characters. It's just annoying at this point. We kind of got through the whole rights deal with Amazing Spider-Man and all that, and now we're kind of, everything is either DC or Marvel, and we just roll with it. Are you gonna come at me with a gotcha moment again?
No. I will say though that Daredevil, I've said it. I think I said it back in the Daredevil episode, but they do make references to the Battle of New York and everything, so it is implied the whole time to be taking place in the MCU. But this is completely
We're not talking about Daredevil.
beside the point. That's not about No Way Home. We had a whole episode about Daredevil. Go listen to that. But what I think for Spider-Man 4 and beyond, the first thing we don't need is another multiverse story.
Yes.
Don't need Tobey and Andrew back for this new trilogy. They can come back for Secret Wars and all that with whatever they're doing there, but they've got to give Tom Spider-Man just these stories to be Spider-Man. I feel like they've given themselves a great opportunity here to just give us a Spider-Man story, like the Spider-Man stories we had with Tobey and Andrew, where you're not like too concerned with trying to connect it to the larger universe because Peter lost ties with everyone. I mean, there's people with their theories that because the spell was only for Earth, the Guardians and other people still know him. But I think, they don't know him well enough anyway. So what I think they should really do in this first one is just focus on Peter just being Spider-Man. I think they should do a more grounded approach. And honestly, I mean, I've told you about this already, Seth. I don't think I want like Daredevil and Kingpin in Spider-Man 4. I want them in Spider-Man 5, but I don't want them in Spider-Man 4. Because I just want 4 mostly to just, explore this new world that Spider-Man's been given. I think Spider-Man Fresh Start would be a great title for it. Kind of a reference to the beginning of No Way Home when MJ, Ned, and Peter are talking about their fresh start at MIT, because Peter literally has a fresh start right now. Like, he has no one, and he's got a whole new life to start. I really want to see that explored instead of going back on everything they did with this.
Yeah, it's going to be tough after something like No Way Home because they've raised the bar so much. They have to expect that it's not going to make nearly as much money. I don't know how much less money, but they need to almost under-deliver because they can't just top the last one. I do think it should be more grounded. I have a feeling, this is my prediction, not about the story specific, well, it is about the story, that Daredevil Born Again will take place in New York, set up the bad guys, set up some storylines, and have the post-credit scene of the finale of Daredevil Born Again be Spider-Man starting to work with Daredevil, because they work together and they have very similar villains. So I would say Spider-Man 4 is possibly a continuation of Born Again, and we are hinted at that in the series itself.
I will say, though, from what it sounds like, it's really hard for them to get Spider-Man to show up in the Disney shows just from the legal side of things. They wanted him in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, but Kevin Feige was just like, no, that's way too much paperwork.
That's disappointing. I'm interested to see where it goes. I'm glad that Spider-Man is good instead of, like, imagine if we were just getting Amazing Spider-Man 2 types of movies. I'd be very disappointed. We might do a whole episode on just Sony Spider-Man movies that don't have Spider-Man. But right now, to finish off the episode, we'll wrap in Morbin Time, Morbius, and the question, do you think that they should connect the Sony universe to Spider-Man? Even if it's obvious that they're not, do you think that they should connect the current mainline Spider-Man of Tom Holland and the movies that they're making now? Or do they cast a 4th Spider-Man and have that be the Spider-Man eventually, not right away, not in the next few years, of Madam Web, Venom, Kraven, and the others?
Option C, cancel all the Sony movies. That's my solution.
You right. That would be good. On top of that note, however, we are going to talk about Morbius because the post-credit scene to Morbius is so confusing. Oh, it's so bad. Yeah, the end of No Way Home. Doctor Strange sends all of them back to their universe. And yet, at the end of Morbius, the same effect is used to show that when that spell happened and Doctor Strange sent all of the foreigners back to their own universe, that somehow a character from the MCU was sent to another universe for no reason, except that the Vulture himself says,
I'm not sure how I got here. Has to do with Spider-Man, I think.
That he has no reason to believe that. It's just such a poorly written last scene to an already terrible movie. But then, oh man, I need to go back and watch it again because it just makes me cringe in the best way possible. It just shows it encompasses all of Sony's movies that they've made and shows just what they are. They're just kind of thrown together and have parts of it that are interesting, but much of it is just garbage.
You know, it's just another example of Marvel going, oh, this works like this. And Sony's like, but what if it worked like this? You know, it's just like...
But what if it worked? But what if it didn't?
You've got to follow the same rules if you want them to be connected. You can't just do what you want. Nando v Movies again, he's got a great pitch for like kind of the best thing you can do with what Sony's trying to do with a full like Sinister Six movie. I'd recommend that too. We can throw that down in the video description.
Yep, the one that no one ever watches or no one ever goes and looks at, I'm sure. Let us know on the Discord if you actually watch the video that I put in the description. There. I know.
Press that see more button right down there.
See more. Sorry, bad reference. Anyways, this has been a long episode. It's time to call it quits. I still love No Way Home, even if it's a little parts of it are a little meh for me. I still love it. It's still really great. It's a great watch. Yeah, follow us on Instagram, YouTube, and wherever you're listening now. Share this with your friends. Thank you, everyone who's followed. It's been a lot of fun getting to have this community grow. Just know, until next week, you are loved. God bless.
Peace out.